You're listening to the Vocabit Podcast, where I help students improve their vocabulary for the SAT, ACT, and life itself using my unique and research-backed story-based method. On this podcast, I'm sharing the best tips and tricks for a more enriched vocabulary and pain-free test day. Hello, and welcome to episode 70 of the Vocabit Podcast. I'm Erica Abbott, a former English and history teacher, the author of the young adult novel Ahead of Her Time, and the founder of the eponymously named vocabulary company Vocabit. As you know, I'm all about using stories to painlessly boost your vocabulary. Sometimes I write fun stories and weave in big words. Sometimes we start with the word and listen to its story with etymology. And to keep things interesting, we're going to kick off a new mini-series today that focuses on the stories of women you've probably never heard of, or of whom you've probably never heard if you don't want to end a sentence with a preposition. We'll still be boosting your vocabulary. The big words will just be hiding in the story. If you missed the first few episodes of this podcast, studies show that for most people, if you encounter a word 8 times, you're pretty likely to remember it. But how you get those 8 impressions is kind of up to you. You can use flashcards, or you can just kind of happen to hear these words in a story. Either way, your brain's going to log that impression. With this new mini-series, I want to start here. Yes, these are the stories of incredible women, but if you're a boy, I don't see any reason why you can't enjoy this series every bit as much as I enjoy learning about Julius Caesar. Don't run away if you're a boy just because we're talking about girls. With all that being said, let's dive in. Mary had a little lamb. Did your brain keep going, little lamb, when I stopped talking? That nursery rhyme is so catchy and surprisingly hard to sing that Mary had a little lamb were the first words ever recorded. When Thomas Edison invented the phonograph, which is kind of like a microphone that also records things, it's how they captured the music for those old-timey records. Anyway, when he first invented the phonograph, the first words he ever spoke into it were Mary had a little lamb, making them the first words ever recorded. When Alexander Graham Bell was perfecting the telephone, he also tested the audio with Mary had a little lamb, making them some of the first words ever spoken into a telephone. When it comes to popular songs and phrases, we usually know who created them. We associate Julius Caesar with Veni Vidi Vici and Shape of You with Ed Sheeran. But who penned Mary Had a Little Lamb? It's staggering to think that a woman as groundbreaking as Sarah Josepha Hale is largely unknown a mere century after her death. It'd be one thing if her accomplishments had also faded away, but her legacy is still with us, and I'm not just talking about Mary Had a Little Lamb. If you'd asked her, she might have actually regarded Mary Had a Little Lamb as among the least of her accomplishments. Sarah Josepha Hale was the Anna Wintour times a million of her day. She was the editress, her word, of the most popular women's magazine in America. It was called Godey's Ladies Book, Godey''S, and for the 40 years that she sat at the helm, from 1837 to 1877, its reach was just incomparable by today's standards. There weren't 15 gajillion influencers and YouTube stars and magazines to compete with. She and a handful of other ladies' magazines were basically the only people talking to women. You can imagine what a tastemaker she was. Thankfully, she wasn't vapid, insipid, or shy. She used her power and platform to further really noble causes that she cared about. She was an early proponent of equal education for women. She wrote one of the first anti-slavery novels in American history, one of about 30 books she wrote in her life. And she's widely credited with annoying Abraham Lincoln until he made Thanksgiving a national holiday. Did I mention that she did all of this as the widowed mother of 5 children? Sarah was devastated by the loss of her husband. She wore black every day for the rest of her life to mourn him. Interestingly, it was her late husband's Freemason buddies who helped her publish her first book of poetry. That's a part of the story you don't see often, and I'd love to know more about it, but these secret societies are irritatingly secretive. The only reason I know about Sarah Josepha Hale is because I'm lucky to be loosely related to her. We don't make any money off of Mary Had a Little Lamb. That's all public domain at this point. But we do have some old copies of Godey's Ladies Book, I think at my grandma's house. I'd love to know why a woman like this was so quickly forgotten. Some people think, and this is probably it, that for all her talk and actions advocating equal education for women, Sarah didn't believe that women should be able to vote. And let's be honest, the public is only going to remember so many women from the 1800s, so why put her in a history book when you have Susan B. Anthony? That's fair, but as erudite intellectuals, I think we have room in our minds to learn about a few other people, even if they're flawed or didn't espouse our exact values. For this series, I want to continue exploring the stories of women who have been forgotten. I'll see you Thursday with another one. You're going to love it. I'll see you then. By the way, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to those of you who have been leaving ahead of our time 5-star reviews on Amazon. I know it's not a big number, but I just checked and there are 17 5-star reviews. It's selling really well, but a lot of people don't leave reviews, so you wouldn't know it. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It really makes the book look good. If you have Ahead of Her Time and you liked it, but you didn't review it, feel free to go back into Amazon and leave it 5 stars. You can leave a comment if you want as well, but honestly, just the stars are amazing. I always get annoyed when people spend half their episodes being like, subscribe to my channel, rate, review, da-da-da-da-da. So I kind of overcorrect and don't often even mention that stuff, but it really does make a difference. So thank you to everyone who has been doing that. And if you want to go leave the podcast or the book 5 stars, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.